parts. First is a meeting of council. Mayor Atwell is at a conference today, so as acting mayor, I will chair that, and followed by a committee of the whole, and I will chair that as well. Welcome to members of the public, and we'll get going with first item is adoption of the minutes of the council meeting held April 25th, 2016.
Move adoption.
Moved and seconded. Seeing no discussion, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. We would invite, our next item is bylaws for final reading, council procedure bylaw.
Move final reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? And any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. The clerk would also like us to, a motion to approve the new meeting schedule. The meeting schedule has not changed for dates, but now that we are starting the open forum early, we will also have committee of the whole on the nights that takes place. And you recall formally we simply had passed by committee of the whole and replaced it with open forum. So I would look for a motion approving the new schedule.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Councilor Plant.
Thank you, Chair Dermott. Just for clarity then, looking at the calendars that we have all on our desks, so essentially the first Monday of each month will become, maybe I can ask for clarification from the staff, because I know we don't have any supporting literature to make this decision. I just want to be clear on what we're agreeing to tonight.
Madam Clerk.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, the schedule of meetings that is on your blotters will actually be replaced with the one that reflects the amendments of the council procedure bylaw. So the open forum will be on the last council meeting of each month at 7 p.m., following which the regular council and committee of the whole will start at 7:30. And there will always be a committee of the whole on that evening as well. So the schedule of meetings is basically minor modifications to reflect those changes in that bylaw.
Thank you. Satisfactory?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, I'll call a question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? None opposed. Passes. Thank you very much. We would now invite anybody in the public who would like to provide us with input on items in section D or E. Please come forward. We'd ask you to give us your name and address, and also to try to limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. If you are interested in providing comment on the item on the committee of the whole, then we would ask you to wait until the committee of the whole portion of the meeting to provide that comment. So if there's anybody who'd like to comment on D or E, would you please come forward at this time?
Just come up to here?
Yes, just up to the mic there in the middle.
Good. Hello, everybody. Scott McPhee, 4000 McClellan Street.
Thank you.
I'm a resident of Saanich and enjoy good whiskey and craft beer. In moderation, mind you.
Excuse me, if you're commenting on the item on committee of the whole, which is the distillery, that comment comes at a later time.
No.
Thank you very much. Good chance though for me to mention to anybody who's commenting that you will see there is a timing device at the dais now. It goes green when you start, goes yellow when you have 1 minute left, and then red when your time is up. Is there anybody who wants to comment on items D or E on the council agenda? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could we have the next item?
The next item on the agenda is two parts. There's a report of the Director of Finance recommending that Council approve short-term borrowing of 5 years from the Municipal Finance Authority. The first recommendation is a sum not exceeding $194,000 for Cedar Hill Golf Course equipment with no right of renewal.
Thank you very much. Need a motion on the item?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councillor Plant, second by Councillor Haynes. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? None opposed. Thank you.
The second item is short-term borrowing, 5 years from the Municipal Finance Authority for a sum not exceeding $850,000 for IT equipment with no rate of renewal.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? None opposed. Thank you. Next item, please.
Moving into the bylaws, 3 readings of the financial plan bylaw 9377 to establish the 5-year financial plan for 2016 to 2020.
Move first reading.
Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you.
Move second reading. Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Plant.
Thank you, Chair Dermott. I'm just wondering if I could ask a question through you to our Director of Finance. The report indicates an additional savings was found between the meeting we last had and tonight, or at least the recommendation for the savings. So I see an increase of an average of 2.64%. Can you please remind me what reductions have been found by staff in the most recent, plus the previous, where there were some less conservative numbers used, so that I can have a final number of what staff was able to find in potential savings for this year's tax levy, please?
Thank you through the chair to Councillor Plant. These weren't reductions in expenditures that were incorporated into the financial plan. This is a result of doing the tax balancing calculations. So in essence, there was an opportunity within Class 6, the business class, in order to distribute taxes fairly and evenly. It reduced the taxes slightly for the residential component. So that's why the residential average dropped to 2.64, but it is absorbed through the business portion. There is no actual reduction in expenditures.
If I may ask a subsequent question,
Certainly.
Chair Dermott, thank you again through you to Director of Finance. So thank you for that clarification. So previously, when Council had asked for a report when we were at 3.25 and we're looking at reductions of 0.3 or 0.5, another number came back that was a result of staff, your department, doing work to reduce the need for the lift that initially was proposed. I'm trying to recall what that number was so that I can then, in theory, add it to, through manipulation in a positive way, not in a negative way, what we were able to reduce through staff activity as opposed to council decisions.
Through the chair to Councillor Plant, much of the reduction from the original 3.25 were also revenue opportunities. We adjusted the building permit revenue based on first quarter results. We were able to make some adjustments there. There were the removal of the ongoing resource requests. So on page 23 of your document, it'll show the items that were deferred. So there was the health and wellness for $30,000. To the youth workers, was another one of the items.
I apologize if I haven't spoken clearly. I was looking more for the percentage than the individual items. I'm familiar with the individual items, but when those numbers came back with the reduction of 0.3 and 0.5, there was also an accompanying report comment saying that through reassessing the numbers for the future year, the number was reduced without us having to then reduce even more in potential projects. And so what I'm seeing a 0.11 reduction through the finalizing of the lift. I'm also wondering what was the initial number that staff was able to do before certain items were taken out of one-time requests. If you need to get back to me, I'm fine with that. Staff has been able to find some reductions this year without council having to do those reductions. I would like to know what amount staff was able to find.
In the report that was provided to Council with the original, so we started at 3.25. As Council will recall, the revenue adjustments brought it down to 3.13, and then the reductions in the ongoing resource requests brought that down to the 2.75. and then this 0.1 is removed down to 2.64. Does that answer your
I
question?
think
or
so.
do I need to
I
go back
think
to
you
it?
actually said the 3.25 to 3.13 was staff finding the ability to adjust numbers based on
Revenue.
revenue. So the 0.12 plus the additional 1.1 as a result of the finalizing equals the number. So approximately.
Yeah, so 0.24 of it would have been revenue,
Okay,
and
good.
then the balance would have been expenditure.
Thank you very much. That's useful information. I don't expect that every year, but I think it's certainly nice to know that our staff is working hard to find ways to bring the number down. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Chair Gentlemen. Just a clarification point, please, Director. Page 3, item 2, property taxation increase 0.75 annually to increase capital funding for infrastructure. Page 3, second point at the bottom of the page. And then on the page following, the paragraph says, projected preliminary property tax increases in year 2 to 5, average 2.5% year for operations, 0.1% for new infrastructure operations cost, and here's the figure, and 0.75 to 1% for increased capital infrastructure funding. I'm just lost on that point, that changed.
Okay, through the chair, Councillor Haynes. So the first portion, we are still incorporating the 0.75. Within budget deliberations, council is making decisions to reduce it from that. That has been the policy for a number of years. So our projections for 2 to 5, we are continuing to use that number for the projections. Each year we bring forward and council discusses that option, and in 2016 we drop that 2.5.
Right.
So that's, we keep that strategy within the 2 to 5 year extrapolation. So that's the first one. And then on the second, when we refer to 0.75 to 1%, that includes the 0.75 lift plus the 2% that we add to the core capital budget. So between those two wrapped together,
Okay.
it's between 0.75 and 1%.
Thank you very much, that's good. Thank you.
Welcome. No other questions? Just before I call a question, I will point out to the members of the audience that our financial plan increase this year does include money, as we pointed out, to catch up with infrastructure funding. The council prior to this and this council have committed to making sure that infrastructure funding gets to a sustainable level where we take care of ultimately replacement costs and also proper maintenance of the infrastructure we have. That was not the case some years ago, and so it's, I think, a very, very positive move. Unfortunately for the taxpayer, they absorb that increase until we get to the sustainable level of infrastructure funding. Call a question on the second reading. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed? Thank you. Third reading?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
The next item is 3 readings of tax bylaw 9378 to establish the tax rates for 2016.
Move first reading.
Second.
Call the question. All in favor? Opposed?
Move second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed? Third. Call the question. Third reading. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you. I think we're in a hurry tonight. That's good.
Efficient, very efficient.
Very much so. Next item, Madam Clerk.
The next item is 3 readings of the CRD on-site sewage system service bylaw, amendment bylaw 9379 to establish the parcel tax rate for 2016.
Thank you.
So moved. Second.
First reading moved. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you.
Second reading. Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Opposed? Thank you.
Move third reading. Second.
Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Next item?
The next item is 3 readings of the sewer capital program loan authorization bylaw 9380 to authorize borrowing of a sum not exceeding $1,500,000 for the construction of improvements to the sewer system in the sewer service area.
Move first reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? None opposed.
Move second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed.
Move third reading.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Next items?
The next item is 3 readings of the Storm Drainage Capital Program Loan Authorization Bylaw 9381 to authorize borrowing of a sum not exceeding $1,500,000 for the construction of improvements to the storm drainage system.
Move.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed?
Move second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed?
Move third reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Next item, Madam Clerk.
The next item is 3 readings of the Transportation Capital Projects Loan Authorization Bylaw 9382 to authorize borrowing of a sum not exceeding $2 million for the construction of improvements to transportation infrastructure.
Move first reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? None opposed?
Move second reading.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed?
Move third reading.
All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Next item, Madam Clerk.
3 readings of the Parks Capital Projects Loan Authorization Bylaw 9383 to authorize borrowing of a sum not exceeding $1,300,000 for the construction of improvements to the parks infrastructure.
Move first reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? None opposed?
Move second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed?
Move third reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item.
This is 3 readings of the Community Facilities Capital Project Loan Authorization Bylaw 9384 to authorize borrowing of a sum not exceeding $195,800 for the construction of improvements to community facilities.
Move first reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? None opposed?
Move second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed?
Move third reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
This is 3 readings of the Gordon Head Recreation Center Loan Authorization Bylaw 9386 to authorize borrowing of a sum not exceeding $836,630 for the Gordon Head Recreation Center boiler replacement.
Move first reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? None opposed?
Move second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Almost forgot. None opposed?
Move third reading.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. That concludes item D. Just before we move to E, I'll mention for the information of members of the public, if council looks like a rote machine, these are items that were very fully discussed during the budget process, and so the debate took place at that time. At this point, it becomes a formality to a fair degree of adoption. So that takes us to item E, which is reports from Saanich Advisory Committee Chair. And I will start with Councilor Brana, and we will look around from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am council liaison to the Administrative Traffic Committee, which is a technical committee. And the things that continue to come to us are on-street parking, people not obeying the signage in neighborhoods, and an interesting one that came to us last month was working with the regional transit system around a bus stop, actually probably a couple, on Burnside. The transit system wanted to move it to a specific location, and we think that there might be a better location that would be more appropriate with pedestrians and crossing lights and things like that. So staff are going to be talking to Victoria Transit about that. I also think that it might actually kickstart Burnside looking a little bit more pedestrian welcoming, as well as transit welcoming. We did have the initial kind of talk around Arrow Road, and that will be coming back to the ETC. From staff, they're looking at a few things as well. And then I'll just talk about, I am Council's appointee to Tourism Victoria Board, and the board's been very busy. It's been an unbelievable year for Tourism Victoria with the number of tours. I was just downtown on my bike on the weekend, and downtown is just hopping, as well as places like Maddox and whatnot. So tourism is really booming in this region. And the other thing was that I was very pleased that the tourism board does these things where they go out to different members' facilities. And so last week I was pleased that they actually went out to the Horticultural Center, or the gardens at HCP as we know them. And I talked to a number of people, a number of hotel owners and whatnot, and they said to me they hadn't been there for a number of years. They were so impressed with how the gardens had matured and the different sculptures and whatnot at the gardens. So staff are very hopeful that through this process, when the tourism board comes out, it will actually have a bumper crop for, pushing people out to the Hort Centre. It is a little way out of town, but it is ranked as number 10 gardens in all of Canada. So I think, and that's posted on Tourism Victoria's website as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brownell. Councillor Morgan, anything to report? Councillor Bryce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be pleased to give a report from the Parks, Trails and Recreation Committee. Always lots of good news coming out from that committee. And first and foremost, we welcome the new Director of Parks and Recreation, Suzanne Zamworski, who attended our first meeting last week, and I know that Ms. Zamworski is in attendance here tonight as well. I know that she will be welcomed into our community and will soon find herself immersed in all the many issues. I've tried to distill my report down to those issues that I think have a particular interest to Council. We had a very interesting discussion 2 months ago, I guess, about philosophically whether or not corporate funding of public buildings and spaces would be something that we would be prepared to look at, entertain, and perhaps recommend to Council. No recommendation coming forward at this time, but we did identify it as a potential alternate funding source. It was recognized there are lots of sponsorships already taking place in minor sports, and in fact, the point was made that if the corporate community did not already engage in funding at that level, many of the minor sports would not even exist. We recognize there needs to be an evaluation of inventory held by Saanich that would lend itself to sponsorship. So at this point, the committee suggested to staff to consider if we did recommend, and Council did ultimately support such a recommendation, what those funds would be used for, particularly with the issue of consistency of dollars for budgeting purposes, in that you wouldn't want to find yourself at a point where you were relying on some funding which didn't continue. Also, the time required by staff to secure such sponsorships. So no particular time on when that's coming back to the committee, but an interesting discussion, and I'll keep you posted. The Mount Doug Park Access Study, a consultant has been hired to assist with the Mount Doug Park Access Study. The report will come to this Council on November 2016. They are examining current access points, current parking to access the park, and identification of the levels of trail difficulty. The key stakeholders have been approached, and some of you who chair advisory committees will have been asked to forward names of a member to be on that committee, and the Parks, Trails and Recreation Committee does have a representative on that study. The Cadborough Bay Interpretive Signs. Now that the Cadborough Gyro Beach project has come to its conclusion, we had always known that we wanted to have some signage, and the committee has reviewed a draft of the signage that'll be placed within the Cadbro Gyro Park. This work has been done in consultation with First Nations, and I think it's something that will be informative and respectful and add to the Cadbro Gyro experience. The Ptolemy Park upgrade has been through all the consultation phases and is now moving to the implementation phase. The plans are available on the Saanich website if you want to get more detail. I will tell you that it was determined that there would be 2 dedicated pickleball courts, which if you're not familiar with pickleball, it has become the activity across the country. Every council is dealing with the fact that this has become a hugely popular activity, and there is a challenge of sharing tennis courts with pickleball players and so on. Anyway, we've had lots of pickleball indoors in Saanich, but this will be our first 2 outdoor dedicated pickleball courts at Ptolemy Park. And finally, we had a very good discussion on the Cuthbert Homes Park at our last meeting. If you recall, when Council endorsed the Cuthbert Homes Management Plan last year, we recognized that it was important to have that plan because with the Mackenzie interchange on the horizon, even at that time, it would be important to have established the principles. So the committee had a very good discussion, and on the basis of that discussion, we have made some fulsome recommendations. I am hoping that that will be on our next agenda, May the 9th, and I think because it's embedded in our approved park plan, these recommendations make good sense. So more about that hopefully on our next agenda. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I chair the Arts, Cultural and Heritage Committee, and then, such as Councillor Bryce has said, we also had our new Director of Parks and Recreation, Suzanne Zambrowski, come and present at our meeting too. So the committee was certainly very excited due to her cultural background as such. So it won't be art as a sport, maybe. We'll have to look for some different things to happen. Committee is very busy as always. As you know, we approved the cultural awards, the Arts, Cultural and Heritage Awards at Council several weeks ago, and now the committee is so excited that we launched them in essence to celebrate the fact that the hall being 50 years old, and now we're right up to our eyeballs in Canada's celebration of 150 years next year. So it's like, why can't we do the next year too? So, you know, you might see these awards every year, it appears, but lots of excitement and lots of discussion about what's going on about Canada's 150. Went to a workshop, several of us, and found out that there's been a lot of communities working a lot sooner, and they've already a year into this, but I'm sure Saanich will do a good show. I wonder how many of you know that it was 1967 that IMO launched their bathtub races. That was their centennial project. The people representing the IMO didn't know that. We've got, no they didn't. We've got 3 new members on the committee, and they brought a new, let's say, lifeblood, different ideas to the committee than many that had been on the committee, some for over 20 years. And so it's quite nice to see that enthusiasm and excitement. I noticed one's already sitting in the audience tonight, but I'm sure she's not here to listen to my report. Public art, we've had a long discussion about public art. We've been quite slow on getting our public art out over the years because it's tied to capital projects and such, but some good ideas came with planning and recreation put their heads together, and I think particularly in some of our neighboring communities have been doing temporary public art and having them throughout the municipalities, okay, particularly. So we might be again looking for something new and exciting happening here in Saanich. Some of our committee members participated in the cycling festival. Thank you, Councillor Brown. We had a nice booth out there. We were right at the very end, but people eventually found out that there was cycling history as well. So next year we're looking forward to again, and we'll move more into the throes of the activities. It made a good point of our history in Saanich. My final note, I'll just mention that Carolyn Duncan, our very capable Sandwich archivist will be receiving an award tomorrow evening from the Hallmark Society on Communications. So certainly, if you haven't gone to Sandwich's archive site, we are really a leader in the heritage world as such, with people coming to our site. It's a very leading edge, so that'll be nice to see her recognized tomorrow evening. And that is it for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanders. Councillor Merkin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I chair the Environment and Natural Areas Advisory Committee, and as usual, it's been a very busy few meetings for our committee. Most recently, Rob Wixon dropped by to discuss the Mackenzie interchange proposal, and I gather he's been around to a couple other committees as well, so we were treated to a discussion on the Mackenzie interchange, actually on the day that the option, preferred option was announced. So it was both timely and I think a little bit, well, at the very least it was apropos. You'll see something coming from our committee as well as, I believe, a couple other committees in terms of calling upon the province for particular asks as part of that project. The committee had a few evenings worth of discussion on the issue of gas pump labels, the pump talkers they call them. And after quite a